Hurricane Beryl is aiming for Jamaica to arrive on Wednesday. So we'll be talking about that clearly and where it goes from there. The 4th of July holiday is almost upon us and the weekend that follows, and we'll have the outlook for both those things. And we'll be taking a look at weather across the country and see what it all means, because it all does have some sort of deep seated meaning. We'll give it meaning right here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. And if you decide to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, be sure to use the coupon code, which is
Summer 2024 or 2024.
and if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10 big percent off, Joe.
Yes. So we got our Category 5 hurricane, Joe, last night and into this morning. Leaked out
They
at,
must have been watching, they must have been watching Joe and Joe because
well, clearly.
at 8 o'clock we were discussing how close it was to a Category 5. And I made the comment, I said, well, maybe they're waiting for the primary advisory, not the intermediate advisory at 8 o'clock, but the primary at 11 o'clock to make the grand announcement that it has reached Category 5 status. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yes, I, I guess they were, paying close attention to the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there's a storm around, although we will be off this Thursday. So this is the next to last show of this week. And what else was I going to say? Oh, for those of you who are on the chat board, welcome to tonight's show. For those of you who are in the background, welcome to tonight's show. Be sure to subscribe, turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, by all means, please hit the like button. So, regarding Beryl, uh, because I think this, we've been talking pretty much for the past year about all the weird weather things that have been going on. So I think we can probably add this to the list of weird weather things. And I was reading uh, Ryan Mao. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter. He's a weather and climate news and views PhD. Look up rockets. I'm just reading off his Twitter feed, weather maps, hurricane season, and actually, I read his tweets. I'm not on Twitter a lot, but when I do, I do read his tweets, and he's very good. He put up a tweet earlier today. I just wanted to run this by you and see what you think. Of course, now that um, well, a couple of things. Uh, should be crystal clear by now that we will see multiple Category 5 hurricanes in 2024. And then he makes the joke about the fact and the highest probability of the first Category 6. So there's that. Um,
And we even mentioned that yesterday, didn't we? I said maybe they'll bump this up to a Category 6.
yeah,
But of
there
course,
was,
we know the Category 5 is kind of an open-ended scale. Anything above 155 is a 5. So
right. Now, he put this question, um, sort of like, okay, so here we have, this first, the Category 4 hurricane at the end of June. Okay. Um, so what do we attribute this to? So he brings up, is it climate change? Well, maybe there's some of that in there. Is it the fact that we've had two La Ninas followed by an El Nino that rapidly switched to a La Nina? Is that part of the reason? Or, and this is the one I'm kind of leaning to, is the continuing effects of the Tonga eruption that spewed all that water vapor into the stratosphere and added an extra 2 degrees of warming. I'm kind of leaning in that direction because a lot of this stuff that's been going on in the last couple of years, but particularly since that volcanic eruption, it's there's been a lot of weird stuff.
Absolutely. I think the estimate was something like 200 million gallons of water vapor that was, or no, 200 million tons of water vapor that has been injected into the atmosphere by the Tonga volcano. I mean, some are saying that the effects of that volcano will continue for more than just a few years. It may be 5, 6, 7 years.
Now, here's another thing. This is, I didn't realize this. This is very, and I think this is even more, this is very interesting. There have been zero, no, zero tropical cyclones in June across the entire Pacific Ocean, both the East and the West. By July 6th, the Eastern Pacific should be up to its third named storm. They don't even have the first one yet. And I was trying to get some numbers as far as the Western Pacific. It looks like the average number of named tropical cyclones in the Western Pacific in June is just under two. So, in a typical year, between the East and the West Pacific, you certainly could have already had five or six or seven named cyclones. They've had absolutely zero. And, you know, so it calls this. What's interesting about that stat too is the fact that is there an unequal distribution of the heat where it seems to be concentrated in the Atlantic Ocean and not so much in the Pacific? I don't know.
All we've been hearing about since the winter has been how warm the Atlantic basin and the Caribbean have been. I've seen very little in terms of how warm the Pacific is. And yeah, one has to wonder whether or not, but then again, in La Nina years, while the hurricane activity is higher in the Atlantic, it's also lower in the Pacific. So maybe like a teeter totter, so to speak. Maybe because the Atlantic is so very warm, and since this is a noteworthy La Nina, that while everything is up in the Atlantic, everything is down in the Pacific.
Yeah, he also points out, by the way, and I was also questioning this, that they carried for Hurricane Audrey in 1957. They had max winds in that of 145. And that actually was in the earlier part of the month of June. Weirdly enough, Audrey in 57 was the earliest Category 4 on record until over 50 years later when it was reanalyzed. Oh, I see. Okay. So apparently, Audrey was reanalyzed to be not be a Category 4 hurricane. So now, um, you know, Beryl becomes the first, is the first Category 4 hurricane in the month of June and the earliest Category 5. I mean, this just is just, we're seeing things like this happen in all different areas of weather in the last several years in particular. I still, I kind of lean on the idea, as I said earlier, that I think the volcano, the Tonga volcano eruption, I think has had a lot to do with this. But I'm not an expert, I'm just your colleague.
No, well, neither one of us are experts, but I want to tell you something. When was the last time we had an undersea volcano of the magnitude that we had of Tonga? I don't think there's anything on record that indicates that we had anything like that, and so we're into uncharted territory as to what the effects from that system may be, either short term or long term. So it could very well be, Joe, that eruption may very well have a say in the weather, the climate, for a number of years to come.
Oh, and by the way, and I have to apologize for this. I did make an error yesterday when we were talking about Hurricane Elena, which was the first Category 5, the earliest Category 5 hurricane in the month of July before Beryl. And I was saying 2017 or 2018. It was actually in 2005, believe it or not. I was like, oh my God, really? So, and the thing is, if 2005, if you want to look at that as a parallel, um, 2005 was Katrina, was Rita, and Wilma. I think all three of them were Cat fives, and I'm sure there were a couple of others in the mix there too. I didn't go back and look at specifics in that year, but that year we had those three major hurricanes. All of those three, by the way, impacted the United States.
And that was also the year that we ran through the entire regular named list of storms and started using the Greek letters. So I said, why not, expect something like that again this year? We're already off to a flying start. I think we've been talking about the D storm already in the process of getting ready to develop. So this looks like a year, Joe, a memorable year in terms of hurricane activity as well as hurricane intensity.
Yes, absolutely. And we're only in the beginning of July. So I have I saved this loop before I refreshed it. I saved it for this is from earlier today when you had the eye coming, clearly visible, extremely well defined. You had that buzzsaw look in the first couple of frames, and then you notice as we go through the morning hours and into the early afternoon, on the west side, it starts to get a little red. I mean, relatively speaking, it's still a major hurricane, but it's getting a little bit, starts to get a little bit ragged there on the west side. The eye is still there, but it starts to get cloud filled. So we're beginning to see the impacts of here, and I just refreshed it now so we can get the latest picture. The impacts of shear and some drier air that's coming into the circulation. And if you look to the west of there, you'll notice the clouds in the southwestern Caribbean the cloud tops are blowing southwest and northeast. So it's coming into a more hostile environment. And it'll be interesting to see how it handles this. It's got a very well-defined core. So the shear it might take a while for the shear to start having real serious impact on the strength of the storm. And then, I think back to Hurricane Michael, which was dealing with 30 knots of shear and somehow managed to strengthen to a Category 5 hurricane. I'm not saying to say it's going to re-strengthen, but my point is that we're kind of, in a way, Joe, we're kind of like in uncharted waters here from the standpoint that you've got this powerful Category 5 hurricane and all the dynamics and meteorology say, okay, the shear should have impact and start to weaken it. But because the system is so strong and so dominant in the atmosphere, that shear may have a tougher time whittling it away, as opposed to, say if it was a weaker system, if it was a Cat 1 that went into the Caribbean and was hitting that shear.
The so I noticed on social media somebody posted a view of Beryl and also mentioning that there were rather strong thunderstorms developing on the west and northwestern part of the storm that were seemingly trying to fight off that shear that you just mentioned. In other words, Beryl was kind of trying to protect itself from getting torn apart or getting partially ripped apart by that very strong shear, which amounts to over 40 knot winds. So I don't know how much of that is going to eventually have a say in diminishing. I mean, it will diminish. I'm not sure just how much as we move through the next couple of days.
All right, we have an Air Force reconnaissance aircraft there right now, and the plane looks like it just flew through the eye. So let's see if we can what we got on the chart here. So, all right, there's not enough info on the SFMR wind speed and rain rate. We have uh, the blue is the wind, and it's up at probably at about 110, maybe 115, some 110 knots. So it's lower than this. I looked at it this morning. It was up at 150, for God's sake. But this may be incomplete. It may not have reached the center yet, or have all the obs on it. So we'll come back to it. I'll go to the. Let me see if there's another mission 11 from earlier, and that's actually in the storm at the moment as well. So apparently they got two planes in here, and this too, at least from what I'm seeing, is not quite complete as far as the whatever the stuff whatever they're measuring there near the center. So we'll come back to this in a little while and see what we find out. In the meantime, So this is the 5 o'clock advisory at 15.9 and 70.8 west. Maximum sustained winds are now down to 155 miles per hour. Uh, Weakening is wherever you can find it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And uh, the pressure up to 943 millibars. It's 125 miles south southeast of the Isla Beata in the Dominican Republic. It is 420 miles east southeast of Kingston, Jamaica. Moving west northwest or 290 degrees at 22 miles an hour. So it's really moving right along here. And the lowest pressure, as you said, 943 millibars, 27.85 inches. We have hurricane warnings in effect for Jamaica, Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Brac. A hurricane watch is in effect for the south coast of Haiti from the border with the Dominican Republic to Anse de Hainault. Tropical storm warnings are up for the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta uh, Palenque westward to the border with Haiti, the south coast of Haiti from the border of the Dominican Republic to Anse de Hainaut. Okay, so I'm doing the best I can, folks. I don't know if I got those pronounced those correctly, but you got to give me some credit for trying. So they have it. The Hurricane Center has it still as a major hurricane right on the south coast of Jamaica. And then after that, it weakens it to a non major hurricane. But they keep it a hurricane all the way across to the northern part of the Yucatan Peninsula, comes out the other side in the southwest Gulf sometime Friday evening. And from there is where the uncertainty grows. And one of the interesting things this afternoon, I was looking here at the the hurricane models that they use. The spread has widened. Once it gets off over the Yucatan Peninsula, you've got actually a fair number of them taking it more northwestward toward the coast of South Texas, and even one model that takes us up even further north. Still, the bulk of them are south of Brownsville, but there's more. There's a bigger spread here, and I guess it's all going to really depend on the strength of the ridge that's across the Gulf states as to whether this thing winds up turning a little bit more to the north or getting deflected a bit more to the west. And that's something that you're not going to get an answer to right now.
And we have somebody on the chat board, Joe, who is watching right now, Jody Ann, who says that she is in Kingston, Jamaica, and
Really?
watching the Joe show. Yeah.
Wow. Jody Ann, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're glad to have you. I don't know what, be interested to know what what are they saying there by you with regards to Hurricane Beryl? I'm sure that weather is front and center on the local news there tonight. But yeah, I can remember back from Irma and Maria, we had a number of people that were on from watching from the islands that we were the only thing, all the local TV was all out. So the only thing they could do was if they got if they could get a internet connection with their phones, so they were able to watch YouTube, and um, me. I think I was soloing at, the, at that point. But always good to see and folks from other parts of the world watching. And please stay safe. Hopefully, this thing passes a little further south, and that the core stays just offshore, and you get a glancing blow, and that would be it. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that for you. The
And she,
intensity.
it's kind of breezy, and there's lots of wind. Well, I mean, I assume that if it's breezy, it's also somewhat windy as well out there. But things are really going to get quite difficult on the island of Jamaica within the next 12 to 18 hours. So we wish Jody Ann all the best, and hopefully, if she can come back online tomorrow night, she'll be able to get the latest information from us in case things are, you know, all down, like television, radio, electricity. We'll see.
All right. Intensity models, by the way, all have have it weakening. Um, Most of them have it no eventually get it down to a category one. There are some that are more aggressive and weaken it down to a tropical storm, but there are more models that it seems to that there are more models that keep it at least at hurricane status, and there are a couple that have one a Cat 2, one is a couple of Cat 2s, one stays at a Cat 3, one's actually up at a Cat 4. Uh, the HWFI model, I believe that is. No, that's not it's the CEMI model. I have no idea uh, what that stands for. So one more check. Let's just check again to see if we these, these usually update every 10 minutes, and I am not seeing anything. All right, so hold on. I do have something new. So it looks like there's a gap. Of course, there's a gap here where what's supposed to be the pressure in the red line. The bottom line here is 950, and you can see the ascending one on the other side. So at least it's at least as low as 950. We'll see what they carry on the advisory, which should be coming up soon. And there's also a break in the flight level wind from from where it peaked out at about 115. It's like it peaked out at about 115 knots. And I'm guessing that, they were in the eye at this point here in between. We'll wait for the graphic to just, totally update and see what that tells us. All right, let's take a look at what's going on elsewhere across the U.S. because we've got some severe weather tonight. Miss Fowler, Joe, would like to see the Kansas City radar, if you don't mind. So if you could get that ready, that would be terrific. And in the meantime,
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
okay, and in the meantime, we have severe thunderstorm watches up for much of central and northeast Kansas, including Kansas City and Topeka, into northern Missouri. We also have a tornado watch that extends from northern Missouri up into southeastern Iowa, and much of that area is also under flash flood watches as well. And we've got heat advisories and excessive heat warnings to the south in the lower Mississippi Valley down to the Gulf Coast. Also, a lot of excessive heat warnings and watches and heat advisories in the west from western Arizona up through much of California into Oregon and even some counties in Washington state. So I'm going to bring you up here and then maybe you could take a look at what's going on in the radars in the middle Mississippi Valley where we got the watches up. So
Okay. You
that's
have to give
all.
me ability.
Oh, I have to share. Yes, we have to do that. Hold on. Whoops. Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. So Joe wanted Kansas City, and here is Kansas City as of this particular moment in time. And you can see that there's going to be a rather significant line or squall line of showers and thunderstorms developing just to the northwest of the Kansas City radar. And you can see where the areas of deep red are. That indicates heavy potential heavily storm activity. And who knows, there might even be a, a funnel cloud or an isolated tornado involved. That area seems to be moving mostly to the southwest to northeast, although it is sagging slowly to the southeast. And Kansas City, I believe, is right here where you see MKC. So they don't have anything right now as of this particular moment, or at least as of the last loop 2347. Excuse me, 2347. Yeah, 2347, and that would be
13
about.
minutes ago.
So it may very well be that these big storms are moving in on Kansas City as I speak to you now. But in any case, this line is a fairly potent one and one to watch if you are anywhere in northwestern Kansas. And this system, again, this squall line moving along mostly southwest to northeast, but that's where the individual cells are moving, but the actual line itself sagging, as I said, to the south and to the east.
All right, see what's going on up in southeast Iowa.
Your wish is my command. This is Davenport, Iowa, and oh my goodness, there's that same line. It looks even more fierce as you head north. Here's Davenport, and you can see that line edging more rapidly to the east. And while the areas of or the colorations are not quite as vibrant in terms of red, there's still a system that probably packs quite a bit of punch to it. And again, it's moving now across eastern sections of Iowa, getting ready to move into the northern and western regions of Illinois and southwestern sections of Wisconsin. So, again, a very potent line of showers and storms, and we're watching it carefully right here on the Joe and Joe Show.
The new advisory for Beryl, 16.1 north, 71.7 west. Uh, the maximum sustained winds are 150 miles an hour, so they left that alone. Moving west northwest at 290 at 22 miles per hour, 90 degrees at 22 miles per hour. The lowest pressure they're carrying 943 millibars, 207.85 inches. And the government of Mexico has issued a hurricane watch now for the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula from Chetumal to Cabo Cajoche. And the government of Belize has issued a tropical storm watch from south of Chetumal to Belize City. Belize City, I know how to pronounce. More watches and warnings going up there for the coast of Mexico, and we're gonna check out. We're gonna look at the maps, the models, and see if we can glean anything with regards to where this is all ultimately going to go. Back to the wide radar view, which I have here up on the screen. That line extends all the way up into southeast Wisconsin, and we have numerous severe thunderstorm, flash flood warnings, and a couple of tornado warnings now in eastern Iowa as this line progresses slowly to the east. And there are other downpours that are running up into northeastern Wisconsin, up toward Green Bay, and points northward into the upper peninsula of Michigan. Meanwhile, in the east, it's quiet. Uh, I really kind of wish it would rain here. It's been bone dry, uh, pretty much for the last 10 days, and when it doesn't rain here, the ground gets baked up like cement very quickly. But no matter. The radars are quiet from Maine until you get down to northern Florida and the west coast of Florida, looking like there's some scattered showers and thunderstorms up and down the west coast of Florida. We also have some heavy storms and downpours in New Mexico, back into eastern Arizona, and touching into northwest Texas, and also a scattering of thunderstorms and some clusters of thunderstorms across Montana and into North Dakota. The Storm Prediction Center for tonight has we've got two working severe thunderstorm watches from south central Kansas into Missouri, and then a tornado watch on the northern end of that, on the northeast end of that. And that's inside an area of enhanced risk for severe weather. That is for tonight, and the tornado risk is 2 to 5%. And as I said, we were doing the radars. We had two tornado warnings that were up there in eastern Iowa. For tomorrow, this is Wednesday morning to Thursday morning. From a small portion of west southwestern New York and northwestern Pennsylvania, but from Ohio going southwest into Indiana, Indiana and Illinois and northern Kentucky, southern Missouri, a slight risk for severe weather there, and also a slight risk in the western plains, eastern Colorado, northwestern Kansas, much of western Nebraska, and southwestern South Dakota, northeastern Wyoming under the slight risk, and that area in Nebraska and Kansas and South Dakota and Colorado in an area of 2 to 5% tornado risk. And on day three, and that's just for the 4th of July, they've got general thunderstorms, Joe, into southern and central New England and upstate New York. They have the marginal risk coming into southwest Jersey, southernmost Pennsylvania, southward to Virginia, and then west from there back to West Virginia, Kentucky. It becomes a slight risk in Missouri and eastern Kansas, northeastern Oklahoma, and then a marginal risk that pushes up into Iowa and Minnesota. I'm still thinking, though, that Thursday, uh, and I threw in that there could be a scattered thunderstorm or an isolated thunderstorm. I think that for the most part, most folks in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England probably will not see a thunderstorm on Thursday.
I have just the mention of a late day shower on Thursday for the immediate for the lower Hudson Valley and probably for the immediate tri-state area as well. So I don't really think. I mean, if I had to put a percentage chance on it, I'd put 20%. But I really don't think that showers are going to be very prevalent later on Thursday or Thursday night for fireworks displays. It gets higher, maybe more like 30 or 40% on Friday. And when we get to Saturday, that's a day where you better have your umbrella close in hand because I think we're going to be seeing lots of shower and thunderstorm activity, particularly later Saturday and on into Saturday night.
And I think maybe some severe weather risk on Saturday too.
I would agree. Now,
Okay.
somebody on the chat board was asking if I could bring up the drought map because it's been very dry. Where uh, this person apparently asked, I'm trying to find that message, that question. Could I bring up the drought map? I certainly can. Um,
You can go ahead. I put you back up here.
I'm just trying to find who sent me that request because they said it was very dry where they are.
And you don't remember where they said they were?
I think it was Maggie P.
Um, looking. I'm also looking. Why don't you bring the map up? Bring the whole U.S. map up, and then we'll figure this out. Maggie, if it was you, can you just put up again where you? I think she's in Colorado. I thought she was in Colorado.
Okay,
I think it was. I think she's in Colorado.
well, the map is up now, and you can now take note of this.
Yeah, she's in Denver. She said.
Okay, the data is valid for June 25th. That's 1 week ago. All of this information comes from data that is collected on Tuesday, and that again is last Tuesday, the 25th. And then they released the updated information on a new map on Thursday. This was for June 27th. So this map actually is a week old, and we will not know, or we will not be able to see the new information as to where drought has spread or has diminished until this Thursday, the 4th of July. And as we've already mentioned, well, we may not have mentioned it tonight, but we did yesterday that we probably are taking off on Thursday. So we won't be able to show you the updated drought map until we're back on Sunday. But let's see. Here in the eastern United States, this is for the Northeast. You can see that it's not terrible, although we are starting to see places in yellow that's abnormally dry, and the darker shades of orange is moderate drought, and we have moderate drought being indicated in portions of South Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania, and especially through a good part of West Virginia. The rest of New York State mostly out in the clear right now, including New York. Well, actually, I think in New York proper, you can see that New York City and part of Long Island, Nassau County, is showing up as an area with abnormally dry conditions. Right there, right there. So, I mean, New York State overall is not in bad shape right now, but we get a few more weeks of dry weather, which really, Joe, the forecasts are suggesting that that will not happen, that we're going to be looking at some rather wet weather over the coming days and weeks ahead here in the eastern United States. Here is the mid-Atlantic and southeastern states. And Joe, you were talking about how your area has been rather dry for the last 10 days. They are indicating much of Georgia under abnormally dry weather, and those darker shades of orange indicating a moderate drought. And it goes all the way down to, and of course, here's something interesting. We had, what, 3 weeks ago, we had severe or extreme drought over portions of South Florida. And now, after all of that rain, what, the 20 or 30 inches of rain that fell in a short interval of time, that down in Florida now is the one part of Florida that has no problem whatsoever. Also, in part of the panhandle of Florida. Now, Maggie P, as you said, is located in Denver. If we check out the Denver area, well, here's Colorado. Colorado, much of the state of Colorado appears to be abnormally dry. Eastern sections of Colorado is into a moderate drought. Otherwise, for North Dakota, not bad. South Dakota, a little bit drier. Nebraska, again, some spots of abnormally dry conditions. Kansas has everything from no drought to abnormally dry to a moderate drought to even a few spots here and here that are indicating severe drought. And let's see, where else? This is Wyoming.
Just all right, guy. When you do that, but then go to West Virginia. Could this Matt Bowitz on the chat board says it's so dry in West Virginia, haven't needed to mow his lawn for 2 weeks. That's a good thing, I guess, that you don't get to mow your lawn. But I'm sure you'd like some rain.
Well, here is West Virginia, Joe. Is that what
Yes,
they're?
West Virginia.
Okay, so I would say that about 10% of the state is free and clear of drought. I'd say about another 20 to 25% is in an abnormally dry state, and the rest of the state is experiencing moderate drought. And if they continue in a dry weather pattern, this area of moderate drought may very well expand on the updated map, which again will become available on Thursday. So you can see that there are places that, a few weeks ago, people were saying, "Oh my goodness, we have so much rain. What are we going to do with the rain? I wish it would dry out." Well, guess what? Now it has become so dry that many places are now experiencing either abnormally dry conditions or moderate drought, and even in one or two places, even severe drought. So we'll see how this all plays out in the coming week. But like I said, the long range forecasts for much of the eastern United States for much of this month of July is for above normal probability of precipitation. So we shall see if
Well,
that holds.
you just answered Frank Scalera's question, which was whether the dry conditions would get worse locally. And I would just add to that, Frank, that you're kind of at the mercy of the scattered nature of thunderstorms during the summer months, unless you get a front that stalls out and you get just running the showers and thunderstorms and training and all the rest of it. So that's something we'll have to see, if something like that materializes down the road. But I agree with you. I do see, Joe, there are chances along the way with this pattern that wants to deliver, even if they weaken, even if the fronts weaken before they reach here and you don't get a good dry push behind it. But there seem to be enough short waves running around that every 3 or 4 days, we're going to deal with something going by, be it a front or an upper trough that's going to set off some thunderstorm activity.
The only state The only state out of the contiguous 48 that is experiencing anything worse than severe drought is New Mexico. New Mexico, in this swath of red that you see here, this area has been experiencing what the forecasters have been indicating to be extreme drought. And there are a couple of spots right here. I just want to see what county that is. I'm wondering if they mention what county that, but well, this county right here in southeastern New Mexico is experiencing in a couple of spots exceptional drought. This happens to be Eddy County, Eddy County in New Mexico, and they are experiencing everything from extreme to exceptional drought in this one county here. So the spot in the nation that is the worst in terms of dry weather and droughty conditions is this right here in southeastern New Mexico, with the lack of any precipitation.
All right, let's switch off down to the upper air. Oh, you wait. Do you have the? I just said. Did you put up? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. You're just moving the maps there. Okay. Here's your upper air map, and I just want to, the just want to point out what's going on, at least down in the Gulf of Mexico with and in the Caribbean, of course. You see, here's Beryl. This is the map for 2 a.m. Wednesday, and there's an upper high sitting across the Gulf states. It's sort of east-west, not particularly strong, but it's underneath that ridge, and you just follow the flow here. So it's going to, you know, kind of move along to the west-northwest across the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, um, once it gets there, as we move toward Friday, you're going to see that ridge kind of weakens to the north. Part of it, it actually splits. You got the western part that goes into California. The eastern part just kind of just just sort of weakens, and you got the Bermuda high that's way out. So there's a weakness there that develops in Texas down into Mexico, and the question will be whether Beryl will be able to exploit that weakness and turn northward, or is there still enough ridging to just force it uh, more west northwest and into either southernmost Texas or down into Mexico. So that's going to be the key here, Joe. Is there's also there's a trough that's digging down into the western lakes that creates that opening there, that weakness. So how strong that trough is also going to determine whether that the system is going to be able to make that. Does it make more of a northerly turn, or does it keep going west northwest and head in south of Brownsville? and and that pretty much covers it. In the meantime, we've got here in the east, there's a short wave that's uh, getting sheared up to the northeast into Canada. There's a lagging system there on Friday and Friday night that moves into the east for Saturday, and then that's probably why we're going to see maybe the better chance for showers and thunderstorms later Saturday and Saturday night. And then there's another trough that drops in for the first part of next week. Looks like maybe around, I don't know, later Tuesday. And there's a little more of a northwest flow on this run, so maybe down the road there'll be one shot of genuine relief, because after tomorrow the humidity is going to stay high right through the starting Thursday and going right through the weekend. We're going to be dealing with dew points that are going to be up around 70 and maybe even into the 70s on Saturday. I think the dew points might come down a little bit on Sunday, maybe back to the mid 60s, but it's definitely going to get very warm to hot and very uncomfortable starting the 4th of July and carrying you through Friday and Saturday, and just the slightest hint of relief for Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a long, long stretch of high levels or moderate to high levels of humidity. So even if it doesn't get exceptionally hot, and quite frankly, I don't think it's going to get much hotter than, let's say, 90 or at most 91 degrees in many sections of the Hudson Valley. Even though that'll be the case, the dew points are going to more than make up for it and make for a very uncomfortable stretch of weather as we progress through the latter part of this week and right on into the weekend and right on into next week.
Yep, the big dry high moves out tomorrow. You can see the bubbling of showers and storms in the plains during tomorrow night and into the middle Mississippi Valley and heading to the western lakes. A little weak trough that goes by to the north on Thursday. So again, maybe an isolated shower or storm pops up Thursday in some areas inland. Better chance if you're down in Maryland, if you're in Virginia, West Virginia, southern Pennsylvania, back through Ohio and Kentucky. That's where SPC's got the severe weather risk. And then Friday, again, maybe the chance that there could be a shower or storm. You got a low that's there in northern Illinois and a weak trailing front and the upper trough that goes with it. And this, I think, is what generates a pretty good chance that we'll get into showers and storms, especially later Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. And I also think that there'll probably be severe weather risk. The GFS takes Beryl up to about Brownsville, somewhere between Brownsville and Corpus Christi. So the GFS would argue that the ridge, there's just enough of a weakness to get this to go further to the north. Meanwhile, in the east, after Saturday's system, the showers go out on Saturday. The model kind of implies that that front's going to get hung up a little bit on Sunday, so that there might be another chance for a shower or storm Sunday afternoon. Then on Monday, more of the same, very warm, humid, a shower or storm in the afternoon and evening, and maybe a better chance coming for storms later Tuesday or Tuesday night. And then after that, it gets a little better, but not much better. And there's something else in the Southwest Gulf next week too, and behind Beryl. Seems like everything wants to go into the Southwest Gulf right now.
Yeah, maybe that storms want to make a reservation, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, you get into these patterns a lot of the time, where they all seem to want to go to the same place. At least at the moment, given that we're so really early in the hurricane season. So anyhow, uh, I think we pretty well covered everything tonight, don't you?
I think so too. I don't know what else we could possibly talk about other than the fact that it's a very active pattern, especially in the tropics now, and we'll be keeping an eye on things. And we've already covered a good part of the upcoming holiday weekend. I think Saturday will be the one day that's going to be kind of a clinker, Joe, with the threat of showers and storms. Anybody who's thinking about Sunday to me looks like a day where it'll start off with maybe some leftover showers, but I think the sun will come out in the afternoon. However, I don't think we're going to see very much of a drop in the humidity. It looks like the humidity again will stay with us right on through the weekend and right on into at least the start of next week.
All right. Okay, so the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system, can be yours, and you can be part of the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. The coupon code is,
Summer 2024.
and if you don't use it, Joe, you won't get.
You won't get that 10% off. So you better go out and get it.
Okay. All right, folks. I hope everybody had a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow night at the usual shopping time, 7:35 p.m. Eastern. Night, night.
Good night, folks.